Hey guys, it's Corrupt, or Nick, coming at you with another episode of Weekly DraftKings Tips. So today we got a little half episode, we're going to call it episode 1.5, and it's just going to be tips and strategies for beginners. So if you guys are new to DraftKings, make sure you stay and watch the whole video. There's going to be a lot of helpful tips for you guys to help you guys earn some more money on DraftKings. We're going to hop on into some general tips for you guys. So to start, you do not want to overspend your money in 1 week. So say you guys have about $100, you don't want to spend more than maybe 20 or so because you don't want all your money being invested into one single week, because something could happen during that week. One of your players that you like and you stack on most of your lineups could end up getting hurt or something, and you could lose all your money if you do that. Another thing, always draft a wide receiver at your flex position. DraftKings is a PPR league, which means every time a player gets a reception, they get a full point for it, and wide receivers tend to get the most points. Next, put the guy with the latest start time at your flex position in case they need to change last minute. You can switch to running back or a tight end if you do so. So in other words, say you have the Sunday night game and you have Antonio Brown at wide receiver and he's not going to play in the game because he tweaked his knee or something. So you need to change him. If he's in your flex spot, if you wanted to, you could change him to Le'Veon Bell or something if he wasn't suspended. But you could change him to Le'Veon Bell and you still get, you'll get a good amount of points from Le'Veon Bell. But if you had him in a wide receiver position, you'd only be able to go to, say, a Sammy Coates or something right now, or a Marcus Wheaton, instead of being able to have that option of Le'Veon Bell. So continuing on with some general tips, you always want to try and stack a quarterback and a wide receiver. If the quarterback is going to do good and you think that they're going to put up a good amount of points, generally one of their receivers will too. Another thing, you always want to keep an eye out for injuries. That's how you can find very good value players like I am for week 1. Another general tip is always use your Vegas lines. They are very helpful. They'll show the games that are supposed to be the highest scoring, as in week 1 is supposed to be the Lions and the Colts game. So I'm going to be picking a lot of players from that game throughout my lineups, and that's another good tip for you guys. Another thing that can scare a lot of people is if your quarterback or somebody that you see or your wide receiver is playing against a top defense, a lot of people will be scared to take them. They don't want to risk it against a good defense. But that's a good way to find low ownership, and you could end up being one of the people that end up winning the week because of that. The last tip, and this is probably the most important, is do your research. Research is key. I research every single week. I look up the players, I look up their matchups, I look up the defense they're playing against, and I know pretty much everything about most of the players, and I'm able to put together a lineup that I feel confident in at all times. So the first step you guys are going to need to do whenever you're trying to play DraftKings is you need to identify the tournament that you're going to be playing in to determine the strategy you need to go for. In other words, there's double up tournaments, there's your standard tournaments, and then there's triple up tournaments and stuff, and tournaments like that. The double ups are generally easier to win. There's going to be X amount of teams, and you just have to place in the top half of it, basically. So say there's smaller ones that can have 11 teams, you have to place in the top 5. Some of them can have 45,000 teams, you have to place in the top 20,000. So it's about 50%. And if you place in that top 50%, then you get double your money. So if you put in a $10 entry fee, you'll get 20 back. Also, standard tournaments are a little bit harder to win, as you guys can tell, but you can make more money off them, obviously. These are the tournaments where only generally about the top 20% actually make money, and you're really not making much until you get upwards of the top 10 or so percent. But these tournaments, if you can get the right lineup and you pick the right players, and you can find that good value player that not many people are going to be going after, then you guys could end up making yourself some good cash. So we're going to go over double ups first. In double ups, what you want to be looking for is you always want to find either a value quarterback or a safe quarterback. You never really want to go risky at the quarterback position in double ups because it's just not worth it. You're only having to beat out 50% of the people. The next thing you need to do is target a value running back and then possibly potentially a risky running back. So you do have to have 2 running backs on your lineup minimum. You could put one at the flex position if you wanted to, but as I said, I don't advise that. And you always want to have a safe or a value running back. That way you know you're going to get so many points from one running back. And then your other one, you could go a little bit cheaper possibly. So if you go for a lower priced running back, they could get you a good amount of points, but they'll also be able to save you money to invest heavy into your wide receivers. Which brings me right into my next point. Invest heavy into wide receivers. They are where you get your most points, and they'll help you move into the top of the leaderboard at all times. So what you need to be doing with your wide receivers is make sure you draft 3 good ones. You want to try to get a top wide receiver, and then 2 middle range wide receivers that are going to put up pretty good points for that week as well. So some more about double ups. You want to target a lower price defense and a lower price tight end unless it's an obvious pick for the week, such as if Carolina defense was playing against San Francisco's offense. San Francisco has a very weak offense. Carolina has a very strong defense. Carolina is going to put up a lot of points on defense. It might be worth taking them. You also want to grab like a top 5 or so wide receiver, and then you want to get a good value one. So what this does is it allows you to get your top receiver that you know are going to put up at least 20 or so points, and then it gets you a value one that's going to save you money to either invest better in a defense if you wanted to, or possibly get a better running back, or have just 3 well-rounded wide receivers. The last point for double ups is do not be too risky. You can take maybe 1, possibly 2 risky players if you're really feeling lucky on it, but I would advise just go safer. Try to maybe go for players that you don't think are going to be as highly owned, but you are confident that they're going to get points, and that's how you're going to end up winning most of the double ups that you play in. Double ups are generally the tournaments that I play in the most. It's where it's the easiest to win, obviously, and I just enjoy them the most. Alright, so moving on to standard tournaments. They're a little bit more difficult to win, as I said, but they could get you some good payouts. So, in a standard tournament, you want to target a quarterback that you have a lot of confidence in. You feel like they're going to do very good for that week, but that not a lot of people are going to be picking. Quarterbacks also give you a lot of points, so you don't want to be going after really popular, high-named quarterbacks that a lot of people are going to be taking. Or, for example, the first week, Dak Prescott, he's a very good value quarterback. He's extremely cheap. He's probably going to put up about 15 or so points, and a lot of people are going to be targeting him. I would say there's no chance that whoever wins the big standard tournaments are going to have Dak Prescott. They're going to find themselves a hidden gem, possibly like a Marcus Mariota was last season. He scored 4 touchdowns in week 1, and the team that ended up winning the $1 million actually had him as their pick. So low ownership is key. You want to find players that are not owned by a lot of people, obviously, because the more owned the player is, the more teams are getting points. You want to be the only one to get points for that player. So if you get a player that only has 0.5% owned versus a player that has 20% owned, every time each of those players scores, you're going to be moving up further in the leaderboard because not as many people have him. A top running back can also be a pretty good investment. They're less owned than top receivers, obviously, because being PPR, top wide receivers tend to get more points than top running backs. So they can be the kind of players where you can get a lot of points, but they're going to be breaking the bank, and you're not going to get as many top wide receivers, or you're not going to have as many well-rounded receivers. Another piece of advice is I would risk it with at least one wide receiver. Wide receivers obviously have the highest upside, being that it's PPR, and any wide receiver could go off for 10 catches and 2 touchdowns, possibly with 150 yards, and get you like 30 points, even if they're a cheap one. So you need to get yourself a top 5 wide receiver that you know are just going to put up consistent points, and then risk it with one, and then possibly get your third as a well-rounded, middle range wide receiver that you know what you're going to get from them. So continuing on with standard tournaments, defenses can be a hidden gem, but you have to be very lucky with them. So obviously if a defense can score a touchdown, you're going to get a lot more points off at defense than most of the other defenses, and pretty much guaranteed if a defense scores a touchdown, they're going to be one of the highest scoring defenses for that week. Tight ends are also an okay investment because they can be less owned than other players because a lot of people invest heavy in wide receivers. So if you go for a bigger name tight end, maybe not quite like Gronkowski because a lot of people will own him, but if you go for like a Travis Kelce or a Greg Olsen sometimes, they can be less owned and they could definitely put up some pretty good points for you guys. Another piece of advice, it's very risky to do, but stack a low-owned quarterback, like a quarterback that not a lot of people are going to have, and then grab his number 2 wide receiver. So week 1, for example, I don't advise doing this by any means, but you could take Brock Osweiler. He's not going to be owned by a lot of people, but a lot of people are going to target DeAndre Hopkins. But what if they shut down DeAndre Hopkins? You could take Will Fuller, the rookie, and if those two connect for a touchdown or 2, you're going to be flying up on the leaderboards because not a lot of people are going to have Brock Osweiler, and definitely no one's going to stack him with Will Fuller. So that's going to be it for today, guys. I hope you guys did enjoy the tips and strategies I had for beginners for DraftKings. If you guys did enjoy the video, please smash that like button. Let's try to hit 15 likes in this video. I got a lot of support in my last DraftKings video. Be sure to check that out if you're trying to play week 1. I'm going to be uploading these every Thursday or possibly Wednesday for the rest of the season, so hopefully you guys can check out all these videos, and hopefully you guys enjoy them. So, that's going to be it for today, guys. Make sure you guys subscribe. Leave a comment below some tips you guys have if I left something out or something. But that's going to be it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This has been your boy Corrupt, and see ya.